At this point, we have 9 years of hard scientific evidence that disproves the government theory about what happened on September 11th, and yet people continue to be either oblivious to the fact that this information exists or completely resistant to looking at this information. So the question becomes why? Why is it that people have so much trouble hearing this information? From my work, I think we would be remiss not to look at the impact of trauma. A friend of mine who is a psychologist in practice here in Boulder said that her caseload increased tremendously after 9/11, and people that she hadn't seen in 10 years were coming back into her practice. So I think it's safe to say that collectively as a nation, because of what happened on September 11th, we experienced trauma.
Why do people resist this information? The information that shows that the official story about 9/11 cannot be true. What I've learned is that as humans, each of us have a worldview, and that worldview is usually formed in great part by the culture we grow up in. When we hear information that contradicts our worldview, social psychologists call the resulting insecurity cognitive dissonance. For example, with 9/11, we have one cognition, which is what the official story of 9/11, what our government told us, what our media repeated to us over and over, that 19 Muslims attacked us. On the other hand, we have what scientists, researchers, architects, engineers are now beginning to tell us, which is that there is evidence that shows that the official story cannot be true.
9/11 truth challenges some of our most fundamental beliefs about our government and about our country. When your beliefs are challenged, or when two beliefs are inconsistent, cognitive dissonance is created. 9/11 truth challenges the beliefs that our country protects us and keeps us safe, and that America is the good guy. When your beliefs are challenged, fear and anxiety are created. In response to that, our psychological defenses kick in, and they protect us from these emotions. Denial, which is probably the most primitive psychological defense, is the one most likely to kick in when our beliefs are challenged.
What some of us will tend to do is deny the evidence that's coming our way and stick to the original story, the official story, and to try to regain our equilibrium in that way. Another thing we can do is decide to look at the conflicting evidence and be sincere and be open-minded and look at both sides of the issue and then make up our own mind.
So they simply will not believe something that they fear to be the truth.
So whenever we say, I refuse to believe, we can be sure that the evidence that's coming our way is not bearable and that it's conflicting with our worldview much too much.
Denial protects people from this kind of anxiety.
As I thought about all of these responses, I realized that what is common to every one of them is the emotion of fear. People are afraid of being ostracized, they're afraid of being alienated, they're afraid of being shunned, they're afraid of their lives being inconvenienced, they'd have to change their lives, they're afraid of being confused, they're afraid of psychological deterioration, they're afraid of feeling helpless and vulnerable, and they're afraid that they won't be able to handle the feelings that are coming up. None of us want to feel helpless and vulnerable, so we want to defend ourselves, and the way we often do that is with anger. So then we become angry, and when we become angry, then we become indignant, we become offended, we want to ridicule the messenger, we want to pathologize the messenger, and we want to censor the messenger.
So how can we overcome this resistance and denial? The first thing is to meet people where they're at.
One thing is that we need to raise people's awareness about this through what I would call gentle dialogue and gentle questioning.
Not pursuing the truth about 9/11 disrespects the value of the life of the people that died. Thinking that we're above such things, that it could happen in other countries, but it couldn't happen here, that's a lack of humility, and that's excessive pride. And so not being able to see our dark side or our weaknesses is the most dangerous thing.
The observation that pride is one of the basic human flaws is absolutely correct. This is especially true for Americans because we for a long time looked at other nations and say, oh, they're in such bad shape, but luckily we don't have those problems. We don't have leaders who would do those things that were done in the Soviet Union, or done in Germany, or done in Japan, and on down the list. So this is a type of pride that Americans have. A feature of American history that makes us particularly liable to this pride is this notion that's called exceptionalism, that America is the exceptional nation. And that began from the beginning. As this country was formed, the people would say, well, there was so much evil in the European countries, so much cheating, so much lying, so much using the people for the rulers' purposes, but not in America. We have leaders that are free from those sins. So I think this has made 9/11 particularly difficult for Americans.
You know what? It wasn't an inside job. We can see the planes. The planes hit the building. It wasn't a controlled demolition, and the buildings came down. And it just is beyond bizarre that he believes it. But he's entitled to. But he's not entitled. He doesn't have a right to teach our students in a classroom. That's not a right.
Well, he has every right, because his conspiracy theory is far more believable than yours. The
no conspiracy theory.
FBI has admitted they have absolutely no evidence against these guys, Osama bin Laden.
You can believe whatever you want. I don't really care. And this teacher can believe whatever he wants. I don't really care. I think you're both a little nutty. But putting that aside, this is what I'm sick of. I'm sick of sending our kids into college classrooms and having incompetent teachers with bizarre political agendas, having a compelled audience that has to be there to get their education. Listen to this
now, they don't have
when
to
there
be
are
there
far more competent, better educated people that are more qualified for those positions. Parents are sick of this, that their kids are indoctrinated into this nonsense.
He is not incompetent, and his theories are no more bizarre than yours. The most unbelievable of all the wild conspiracy theories is the one that our government has told us.
You believe the United States government itself is putting forth a conspiracy theory when it talks about 19 people with box cutters in an airplane and Osama bin Laden being the mastermind? That is a conspiracy theory?
Well, absolutely. There's 20 people involved, right? That makes it a conspiracy.
Well, I have studied many conspiracy theories in my life, and the absolute worst one I've ever heard is the official version of 9/11. We were told that 19 Muslim fanatics somehow bypassed our $40 billion defense system, hijacked 4 planes simultaneously, causing their transponders to go off almost at the exact same time. We're totally lost from FAA radar, not to mention satellite radar and NORAD radar, made their way to New York and crashed into 2 prominent landmarks, the 2 towers of the World Trade Center, and then another one crashed into the Pentagon, and then another one crashed in Pennsylvania, and all of this under the direction of a Muslim cleric hiding in a cave in Afghanistan with a computer. Now, if that isn't about the craziest conspiracy theory I ever heard, and yet that is what we are expected to accept as the legitimate version of what happened on 9/11.